Hey, what's going on everyone? My name is Donovan and today I want to talk about this device right here. This is the Umidigi One Pro. I've been using it for about the last 24 hours and today I want to just share some quick first impressions of this super budget-friendly device. You can see it's available right now from gearbest.com for $170. That is part of their treasure hunt sales, as you see right there, and a pretty impressive device for $170. Now there is also the Umidigi One, so basically just drop the Pro, available also for $130. We'll go ahead and back out of this just so we can see exactly how much that one is. So I do also have the Umidigi Z2 Pro on the way, so stay tuned for that video. That one's $300, and I previously did a video on the Umidigi Z2. Probably not a device I would necessarily recommend. That one's for $200, so there you go, $140 for the Umidigi One. Very similar specs to what you get here, a couple of differences that we'll talk about. And that one right there, the Umidigi A1 Pro that I did a review of quite a while back for $100, just a super fantastic deal. So I'll link all these deals down below, but lots of great deals going on, and this is specifically about the Umidigi One Pro. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So I'm going to set the phone off to the side and show you what you get in the box first of all. So there's a quick thank you card here from Umidigi. They also have this little pamphlet that it comes with. Inside you get your link to the world. So inside of that is your SIM removal tool and then some booklets there. You also get a Type-C cable, red, kind of like what you get with like the One Plus. Obviously not quite the quality you get with the One Plus. And then you get your 2 amp charger. Now what's cool about this device is that it's actually capable of 18 watt fast charging, and that's using this charger, but unfortunately you can see you're going to have an adapter if you live in the US. Obviously if you live in Europe, I think this is a Europe or EU plug there, so that you'll be just fine if you're from the EU. You can use that one with no issues. Now on the back they have some of the specs, and this is honestly one of the reasons why I think this is such a fantastic device. So first of all, we have the MediaTek 6763. Basically that's the Helio P23 processor that is clocked at 2 gigahertz. So you can see here we have 4 cores clocked at 2 gigahertz and 4 cores clocked at 1.5 gigahertz. In general, the Helio P23 processor has been an okay processor. Somewhere around the Snapdragon 625, maybe not quite as good as that. We have Android 8.1 Oreo, basically 100% stock Android here on this device, 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of internal storage, and yes, it is expandable as you can see here. So you can either use 2 SIM cards, and yes, they both are 4G capable, or you can use 1 SIM card and your SD card here as well. 3250 milliamp hour battery, 5.86 inch 720p display. So basically we have a 720p display stretched out into the 18:9 aspect ratio here. And then we have 2 rear cameras, 12 megapixel, 5 megapixel, and then a 16 megapixel front camera. And then you can see bands galore here. So what's awesome about this is that it works pretty much anywhere you're going to go. This is similar to like what you would get with like a One Plus, where it has pretty much the bands for the entire world. What's cool about this one though is that it does actually have the bands for Verizon in the US. Now the unfortunate thing is that even though it does technically work on Verizon, it goes really in and out. However, for AT&T, T-Mobile, you'll get much better service with this device. Alright, so now let's go ahead and talk about the design of the Umidigi One Pro. So as you can see here, we have a carbon fiber design on the back. Now this is a glass back, so it's smooth, even though it looks like it could have kind of like that carbon fiber feel. It definitely is very, very smooth, very slippery, but it does come with this case in the box, so that's very cool that they include that. It's just a thin TPU case, but awesome that it's included. They do also include a screen protector in the box as well, so it's just a plastic screen protector, but obviously does the trick. So a few other things worth mentioning about this device. So we have a microphone jack, so that's awesome. We also have dual speakers, so there's a bottom firing speaker and the earpiece doubles as a speaker as well, so dual speakers on this. Also Type-C for charging. There's a microphone down here on the bottom. Along this side we just have our SIM tray, so that's all that is a SIM tray, and again that also doubles as the SD card tray as well. We have another microphone up here on the top. Over on the side we have our fingerprint sensor. So the fingerprint sensor, yes, is on the side. You can see it works quite well. And then we have our volume rocker over here. So one of the things that I haven't liked about some of the Umidigi devices that I've reviewed in the past is the fingerprint sensor being kind of slow. This one's actually not too bad. It's certainly nothing like what you get with like a OnePlus device, but not bad at all. And then there's another microphone up top. There's our dual cameras on the rear, and then our front firing 16 megapixel camera on the front. Alright, so as far as the display goes on the Umidigi Z2 Pro, you can see here that we have a 5.9 inch display. Now there is a notch, so you can see I'm on a video here. I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like, but I'm going to go ahead and get out of that real quick. And you can see that obviously videos will take up the full screen, but we do of course have that notch. Most of the apps out there will be able to utilize that notch with no problem, and you'll be able to kind of get rid of it. And you can see obviously it works with picture-in-picture here. Go ahead and get rid of that. And overall, I would say even though it is only a 720p display, I've been pretty impressed. It does get plenty bright, so I've had no issue seeing it in the brightest of days, but it does obviously get quite dark as well. Actually, one of the issues I had with a previous version, I believe it was the Umidigi One Pro, was that it actually didn't get dark enough. So the screen at the lowest setting was almost too bright, so that was a little bit of an issue. But with this one, I don't think that's an issue, and overall, I've been pretty impressed by this display. Alright, so as far as performance is concerned on the Umidigi One Pro, you can see here we have a Geekbench score of 761 for single core score and a multi-core score of 3619. Now what does that mean in real life? Well, what I can say is this. When I'm running basically any of these apps that you can see here, it works quite well even with social media. No hiccups really whatsoever. Where I have noticed the hiccups though is with gaming. So one of my favorite games to play, and my son loves to play it as well, is Star Wars Force Arena. You will definitely notice it has a 700 gigahertz GPU, and I have definitely noticed with games like Hill Climb Racer, where it doesn't have a whole lot of graphics in there, it does just fine. And other games like, let's say, some of the games my kids like to play on Disney now, really no issues. But where I have seen the issues is with higher resolution display games like Star Wars Force Arena, where it's going to have a lot of graphics going all at once. That is the area where I've seen maybe some performance drops, and that's to be expected at a phone at this price point. But overall, I think the performance has been pretty good, pretty much on par, maybe not quite as good as what you'd get with something like a Snapdragon 625 processor, which usually clocks around 4,000 in the Geekbench score. So this is just under that at 3,600, but overall not too bad at all. And you can see pretty snappy performance in general day-to-day tasks. All right, so now I want to talk about one of the areas that I would argue is probably one of the biggest selling points of this device, and that is the fact that not only does it support fast wired charging at 18 watts, but it also supports fast wireless charging at 15 watts. Now, there are only a handful of devices that actually support fast wireless charging, including the device I'm using to review or make this video with right now, the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. Now, that's a $1,000 device. This one here cost $179 and supports the same fast wireless charging, 15 watt fast wireless charging that you get on the Samsung Galaxy Note 9. Now it does only have a 3250 milliamp hour battery, whereas if you get the regular Umidigi One, it has a larger 3650 milliamp hour battery, and I think partially that is due to the fact that it doesn't have to have that wireless receiver on the device. So kind of strange that the cheaper version of the device has a larger battery, but I think that's mostly because this one supports the wireless charging, that is, same as the Umidigi Z2 Pro. Alright, so we just talked about one of the biggest selling points of this device. Now I want to go ahead and talk about one of the areas that I think is probably one of the weaker areas, and that is the cameras. So again, this supports a 12 and 5 megapixel camera here on the rear, 16 megapixel camera up front. I'm going to go ahead and show you the app that it uses for video and picture. So you can see here there's the picture and video. Those are your only options. So basically you just slide back and forth between the two. It only supports up to 1080p video on the rear and 720p on the front, so that's definitely a limitation there. But then not only that, but notice that there's really not a whole lot of options in here. So if I go up here, you can see some of the modes. So what's weird is that rather than call it portrait mode, they call it stereo mode here. So this is really the same as what you would get where you get that bokeh effect. And I have actually not been super unimpressed with the bokeh mode. I do think it actually does a fairly decent job of bokeh, meaning it blurs out the background and does a pretty decent job of it. I haven't been but notice that it's kind of slow there. So that's one thing that I've noticed. It's kind of annoying is that the shutter is a little bit on the slow side. But overall pictures haven't been terrible. So that's one where I didn't use bokeh. But then you can see here I actually used bokeh when I took a picture of my Powerade bottle last night. But it does a decent job there. So it kind of blurred out the background. So this is one with a little bit less bokeh. And in fact, I think that one might not have had it at all. But one of the things that I definitely think is weak about the cameras is the fact that not only is the shutter kind of slow, but there's just not a whole lot of shooting options here. So basically it's a point and shoot. You get your panorama, you get your bokeh effect, or they call it stereo, and then your normal mode. But other than that, there's HDR and that's about it. So pretty limited in terms of the functionality of the camera, but overall the cameras aren't terrible. They're just certainly nothing like what you would get on a more expensive device. Alright, so before I share my first day conclusions of this device, I wanted to go ahead and give you a listen to the dual speakers. So again, we have a bottom firing speaker here and a speaker coming out of the earpiece as well. So let's go ahead and take a listen, and then I'll share some of my final thoughts after one day of usage. So here we go. All right, so are the dual speakers amazing? No, they're definitely not, but overall, I'm still impressed at the fact that it just has the dual speakers, and they're really not terrible. Now, the fact that this phone has dual speakers, that's a huge plus. The fact that it has Type-C for charging, that's a huge plus. The fact that it has a fingerprint sensor, which I think works quite well, also another huge plus. Also wireless charging. Real dual cameras, at least from what I can tell so far, it seems like they're real dual cameras, not just a fake bokeh effect. It really seems to actually have a real bokeh effect. 64 gigs of onboard storage, 4 gigs of RAM. This thing is a winner in my opinion at $170. Now it does also have something I forgot to mention earlier. It actually has wireless charging, but it also has NFC. So if you want a device with NFC and wireless charging at this price point, I just don't know of any other device you can get with all of the features that this phone packs at $170. Now, it's not a perfect device. Obviously, the cameras are not the greatest. For gaming, I definitely wouldn't recommend it. If you're a big gamer and you want to play a lot of games with your device, like obviously this thing is not going to run PUBG real well. It will run most games, most average games if you're not like a huge gamer, but you want to be able to run some like lower level games that don't require a ton of graphics. It's going to be just fine. But overall, I would say this phone is definitely one worth checking out. Again, links down below if you're interested in checking out. Also link for all the other Umidigi devices that I mentioned earlier from GearBest. They got a great sale going on right now, their treasure hunt sale. Check them out in the links down below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.